We'll call the regular meeting of the Upshur County Commission to order. We'll begin with a moment of silent meditation and prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll have the reading of the minutes. Jackie, if you would.
The County Commission of Upshur County, West Virginia held their regular meeting at the Courthouse Annex on Thursday, March 29, 2012 at 9 a.m. Donnie R. Tenney called the meeting to order. There were present Donnie Tenney, Creed Pletcher, J.C. Rafferty, William Parker, Administrator, and Jacqueline Dinklocker, Secretary. The meeting began with a moment of silent meditation and prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All motions passed unanimously unless otherwise stated. Joyce L. Harris Thacker, Upshur County Family Resource Network Director, presented the proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, which solicits community involvement in the efforts of child protection. After discussion on motion by J.C. Rafferty, seconded by Creed Pletcher, the Commission approved and authorized the Commission to sign the proclamation designating April 2012 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month in Upshur County. Sarah Crum, Department of Health and Human Resources Supervisor, presented the proclamation for the Children's Memorial Flag Day, which is to recognize and remember children who die at the hand of violence each year. After discussion on motion by Creed Pletcher, seconded by J.C. Rafferty, the Commission approved and authorized the Commission to sign the proclamation designating April 27, 2012 as Children's Memorial Flag Day in Upshur County. Billy Hunt and Priscilla Peggs, Women's Aid in Christ, as representatives, presented the proclamation for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which encourages community support for the prevention of sexual abuse. After discussion on motion by Creed Pletcher, seconded by J.C. Rafferty, the Commission approved and authorized the Commission to sign the proclamation designating April 2012 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Upshur County. The Commission recessed at 9:25 a.m. and attended the flag-raising activities in honor of Children's Memorial Flag Day in the Courthouse Plaza area. The Commission reconvened at 9:30 a.m. Joyce L. Harris Thacker provided a review of upcoming events, including the Upshur County Schools Dropout Prevention Follow-Up Forum, which this evening at 6 p.m., and the Community Baby Shower event on April 21, 2012. Chris Mallett, Executive Director of Clarksburg Mission, appeared before the Commission and provided a review of veterans and mission housing needs. The Clarksburg Mission partners with many Upshur County agencies to help meet the needs of the homeless. After reading of the minutes on motion by J.C. Rafferty, seconded by Creed Pletcher, the Commission approved the regular meeting minutes of March 22, 2012 as submitted. After discussion on motion by Creed Pletcher, seconded by J.C. Rafferty, the Commission approved the change in the employment status of April D. Smith as full-time E911 Communications Center Director to part-time, as recommended by Steve Linger, E911 Communications Center Director. The status changes effective as of April 1, 2012. William A. Parker advised that agenda item consider recommendation from Steve Linger, E911 Director, to change employment status for Tracy Lewis from part-time to full-time effective April 1, 2012. Was not ready for consideration, was removed from the agenda. After discussion on motion by J.C. Rafferty, seconded by Creed Pletcher, the Commission approved the establishment of the Upshur County Coal Reallocated Severance Tax Fund as required by Senate Bill 1002. After discussion on motion by Creed Pletcher, seconded by J.C. Rafferty, the Commission approved the request from Mid-State Soccer Club for the usage of Pringle Tree Park on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings through May 2012, provisional to meeting insurance requirements. The Commission reviewed the following for your information items. Number 1, agendas and notice of meetings as listed. Number 2, meeting minutes and/or financial reports as listed. Number 3, meetings of boards as listed. Number 4, appointments needed or upcoming as listed. The Commission approved all invoices for payment. The Commission approved all vacation orders. The Commission approved the following settlements as listed. The Commission approved the following exonerations and/or refunds as listed. The Commission recessed at 10:30 a.m. Commission reconvened at 10:45 a.m. James Ferry, Office of Emergency Management Director, and William A. Parker, County Administrator, appeared before the Commission to review and/or clarify communications concerning OEM budget requests. Number 2, overall budget process. Number 3, salary and hourly positions and FLSA. Number 4, related job duties, working relationship with staff of the OEM and Commission office. Number 5, reasoning or purpose for compensation of certain employees. William A. Parker advised that this should be an executive session matter. On motion by J.C. Rafferty, seconded by Creed Pletcher, the Commission entered into executive session to review the purposes of wage increase of certain employees and review concerns expressed by James Ferry. Present were Donnie Tenney, J.C. Rafferty, Creed Pletcher, William Parker, and James Ferry. No decisions were made in executive session. The Commission returned to open session at 12 p.m. Commission recessed at 12:15 p.m. Commission reconvened at 1:15 p.m. Greg Harris, Upshur County Director of Facility Operations, and Sid Cooper, M&S Services Representative, appeared before the Commission and provided an update status report on maintenance items at the Buchanan Upshur Recreation Park pool facility. The pool leak and lights were discussed. The Commission recessed at 2:30 p.m. The Commission reconvened at 3 p.m. at the E911 Communications Center and met with Steve Linger, E911 Communications Center Director, and E911 dispatchers, with Carol Dean and Kimber Watcha being absent, to discuss personal items regarding working conditions, environment, and professional conduct expectations. With no further business, on motion by J.C. Rafferty, seconded by Creed Pletcher, the Commission meeting adjourned at 5:30 p.m.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as read? If not, I'd ask for a motion to be approved as such.
Make that motion. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we have with us this morning Jody Akers, Attendance and Student Services Director for Upshur County Board of Education, and Virgil Miller, Sheriff of Upshur County, Prevention Resource Officer Grant Application.
Good morning.
Let the ugly go first. Is that the game?
Well, the reason we're here this morning, and this goes back several years, and this is Jody's Christmas wish, you know, for a long time that she's going to present to you this morning, and I'm here to stand behind her and endorse her, and I'll let her present the numbers and the figures and the details, but I will tell you it has been a work in progress for several years, hasn't it, Jody? And you know, we've put a lot of thought and effort into it, and I think we're at the point now to move to the next step, and that's why we're here this morning, is to present this to you this morning. So I'll defer the floor to Jody. She's a more eloquent speaker and better looking than I am. You know, by a little bit. She got a little more hair than I do. That's the only thing she's got on me. But Jody?
Thank you, Sheriff Miller. I'm so happy to know that my Christmas present is finally going to I have an opportunity to ask for this wish. As you know, we have had our PRO officer, Prevention Resource Officer at Buchanan Upshur High School. This is the third year for that program, and the Upshur County Board of Education has completely funded that program this year due to lack of the grant funding in the grant that we had applied for that previous position. That has been a very valuable program to our school system. And Virgil is absolutely correct, because every time I would see him and every time we would have our monthly meetings, I would ask him, do we have an officer? Could we look at the middle school? So I am here today to bring to you, we have applied for a PRO officer for Buchanan Upshur Middle School. The grant amount that we are asking for is $50,000. It has a 25% cash match. The Upshur County Board of Education had met Tuesday evening, had heard this proposal, and had agreed to pay the balance of the salary of that position of $9,299. And we're coming to the commission with the same request we did with our previous PRO for the high school, and that is with our training and with the patrol car and those miscellaneous expenses. We used the same dollar amount that we had in the previous grants, which totaled $7,400. And when we look at that in the scope of things, and we're hoping to get the full $50,000, we think that's just a small portion, and the benefit that it can have with our students. I think our main goal was, we see how effective it's been at the high school level, and we have issues we need to address with our incoming freshmen especially. That's the place where we're noting a lot of incidents, and so we're hoping that this transition, as that officer can work with our students, will make that transition much smoother for them. Okay. So that's our request. That's my Christmas wish today.
Okay.
I was going to say, you might throw some of the figures out, how beneficial the high school program has been.
Oh, as far as the reduction in our numbers, I did not bring those with me this morning, but I can tell you that we've had a substantial decrease in our fights, in the discipline infractions that we have seen in the past 3 years. It has been a steady decrease, and we equate that to the prevention that Deputy Simons is doing within the classrooms with our families and students. And I can get those numbers to Virgil. We can definitely bring those back to you, but it's been a substantial decrease.
Was, in the case of the high school, is the deputy, does he do other work outside of the high school, or that's strictly his job?
That's his job assignment, the high school.
But he does investigations if required away from the high school if necessary.
But relate to the high school?
Related to the
issues?
alleged activities at the high
Right,
school.
but basically that's where he's assigned.
That's where he's assigned. He handles all the issues that arise that need criminal attention or just addressed at the high school.
All right, any questions for Jody? We'll certainly talk about it and take it under consideration. And it might have helped if you'd brought Santa Claus instead of Mickey Mouse, but.
The grant is due April 20th, just so I make you aware of that. I have left with Willie the grant, the front page for signature, and the agreement that the Board of Education had signed the other evening, so you can contact my office.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Thank you.
we'll talk about it today.
That'd be great.
May I just address one thing? One of the big factors is that you just can't make somebody a pro officer. A pro officer has, he has to want to be a pro officer. That's what he wants to do, and he has to come in with that mindset that he wants to work with the kids, be productive and do a good job there in the school. So that's been one of the issues, that is to find, an officer who wants to do that. So we have one, and there's certain criteria. You can't just hire somebody and say, well, you're a pro officer. There's certain criteria he has to meet. And we have one of our own officers now that works on the road that has expressed an interest in doing that. And so that's why, I talked to Jody and I said, we have someone now that feels, he wants to do that.
Will that require you at some point within the budget process to request authorization for another deputy to work?
Yeah, this
regular
officer would move
investigations?
to the school, and then we would replace him on the road with, with someone else. But it requires, 2 weeks of training initially this summer prior to going out. And actually, we'll have Doug, actually, he's at the school today kind of shadowing Doug to see what all Doug does in the course of the day. And so kind of premature of me, but,
Right.
you know, I said, you know, go ahead and look at it and see if that's really what you're interested in doing. So,
What would the turnaround time be on the budget approval, or the grant approval if it is authorized? Generally, you go in by April 20th, and when do you expect?
We would
June.
hope to, by July 1st, I
Yeah.
believe is what the
Okay.
grant had.
Okay,
because the training, the required training is annual, and that begins in July.
right, so you have very short turnaround.
Very, very
Right.
short.
Yeah. Well, it's good for you to do that in anticipation, but think positively.
So is that our cost now on Doug, Willie?
I'd have to look at the numbers, see, I haven't went back and
Yeah, we're
reviewed those.
basically funding uniform and.
Uniform and
Vehicle,
vehicle,
gasoline.
yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't
The
added
Board of
those up.
Education has picked up the salary.
Yeah,
The total salary.
We provide the equipment.
Right.
we haven't, did we have some grant?
We did initially, but it decreased over 4 years.
Well,
3 years.
this last funding cycle that we applied for, actually, there was not any PRO
Okay.
Right.
positions
I
funded.
I knew it was cut to 10,000 at one time.
That's what we were applying
It
for.
got cut
and
to
then
zero
they-
last time.
Okay.
we didn't even see that.
So-
So the board picked that salary up.
So the grant funding, is there, it sounds like you were saying that the grant funding was totally eliminated for that? for
This
the-
is a different grant source that we're applying.
Okay, a
for
different
this.
grant source, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it had a very positive impact on the students if we started at the middle school.
You're correct, and I think I have the same mindset that Jody does. That if the earlier we can start working with them to understand that, you know, what's expected, I think we'd be better off.
Okay.
Relative to the first PRO officer up at the high school and reduction of grant funding, have you noticed that? Has that been consistent with other counties that have PROs where the funding has been reduced, the availability of funds has been reduced?
Yes, and all of those counties that applied under that same Title II funding that we did, none of them were funded that.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Well, and that's the way it works under this COPS program.
Right.
Is They pay a high percentage up front and over 3 or 4 years, and it diminishes the work. And it just encourages the addition of more law enforcement, just like the same principle here. So,
But I have to commend the Board of Education too
Right.
with Doug at the high school. Once the funding, you know, they really stepped up, took on the lion's share.
right.
And that's part of the grant, and we wrote into this grant as well, the sustainability, and that, you know, we do have a vested interest in this program.
Right. Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing I could, just for a second. As you aware, every spring and fall, we do the National Take Back Initiative with the DEA.
It's Sunday, isn't
And
it?
Saturday,
Saturday, okay.
April 28th.
Okay.
I want to, if it's okay with the commission, turn it around. And if I could put one of these at the front entrance to the courthouse.
Is it Rock Cave again this year?
Rock Cave, the only change is we're actually trying to make it a little better for our seniors and older, but we're going to do it at the Tri-County Pharmacy.
Okay.
We're co-oping with them, and they're giving us space. And
I know it's been a very successful program.
It's amazing how many drugs you accumulated last year.
they gave us, I think, 3 boxes. We filled up 2.5 boxes, which are the size of a trash can. Yeah. And actually, I've got some downstairs in the evidence room that people brought in, and we said, we'll just put them in the evidence room and throw them in. Dispose of them there. Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Virgil.
Thanks, Virgil.
And put me on the agenda to ask them next week to use the annex for the take back. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, we've got a few minutes before our next appointment, and so we'll drop down to items for discussion and possible action. First is approve request from Mountain Cap of West Virginia for the Upshur County Commission to serve as the governmental agency for Child Advocacy Center. It's a continuing arrangement, Willie?
It's a continuation of the program. They've been able to apply directly in the past. However, the requirements have changed, and now they must go through a governmental agency. The grant application must. So they've approached the commission in doing that. I
have them contact to make sure that we wouldn't be in competition with ourselves per se.
Right.
And since it's an ongoing program, there's no more competition than there has been in the past.
All right,
So we're
so
serving just basically as a pass-through.
Yes.
then do we have a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Approve hardware maintenance contract with Software Systems Incorporated, IBM, on the AS400 for a 3-year period. Another continuation of,
It's a continuation of the maintenance agreement we've, had in place. It was covered, initially we, paid for a 3-year period up front when we purchased the new system. And now that is expiring and we just need to renew that. And with IBM, when you replace the operating systems, this allows you to replace the operating systems at no cost if they have an upgrade. And if you do not, then you have to pay time and materials hourly rate when they come to repair anything, as well as then you have to pay for any system operating upgrades they have made when you replace your machine in the future. So you pay one way or the other. You're going to pay IBM to update.
Not being a technically savvy individual, basically a Luddite, what actually service does this system perform for the county?
This runs all of our programming. The S400 system, and it's got a different name now, but that's what the old name is. Our tax office program runs off of it. Our budgeting, accounting, payroll system runs off of it. Runs all the programs in the county.
Do our business, in other words.
Yes.
This is the brain of the
This is the
technical
brain.
object.
This is if the AS400 goes down, a lot of offices shut down. Does not run the indexing system. It's separate now in the county clerk's office, as well as some of the programs in the assessor's office are separate. There's 1 or 2 that are on the AS400, but if the AS400 goes down, we pretty much shut down budgeting and payroll, tax collections, DMV license.
The essence of government.
Yes.
I noticed also we saved by entering a 3-year contract about $4,400.
Yes.
okay, any other questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion we approve contract and authorize the president to sign the documents.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign, motion carries. Approve resolution designating the Upshur County Development Authority as the local economic development entity for the coal bed methane severance tax program. You might explain, Willie, exactly what that money and how that whole process is going to work?
There was a Senate Bill 487 that was passed during the recent legislative session and dealing with the coal bed methane distribution, and it's distributed similar to the coal severance tax and oil and gas tax as, producing counties, and then all counties get some money. And then the producing counties, get more based on the formula used by the state. But for this particular bill, if it's $10,000 or more, the amount will go to the economic development entity that's been identified by the county commission for economic development projects or infrastructure projects, and those are defined in this Senate bill of what would qualify for that. And anything along those lines, the Development Authority would have to bring back to the commission for approval. Previously, they had to be approved by the state development office. That's no longer required. They've modified that, so it just requires the county commission approval. If it's $10,000 or less in the allocation, then it comes to the county commission, and to offset regional jail cost, community correction programs cost, or other eligible expenses authorized by the Senate Bill 487.
Including volunteer fire departments.
Fire departments or libraries.
So if it's $10,000, it comes to the county. If it's $10,000 and a penny, it goes to the Economic Development Authority.
Correct.
It'd been nice if the first $10,000 would have come to the county, and then anything over would have gone to the Development Authority. Okay, so
And
we
that's
need,
how it used to be distributed, when it was distributed, but they've changed that.
At least they're recognizing areas where there have been unfunded mandates, so to speak, relative to operation with the counties, relative to the fire departments and the regional jail costs and things of that nature. So I think that's a minor step in the right direction from their perspective.
okay, we have a motion to approve the resolution designating the Upshur County Development Authority as the local economic development entity for the coal bed methane severance tax program.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, at this time, we have Karen Facemeyer and Dennis Alexander, Just Beneath the Surface, presentation on natural gas drilling.
You really have Karen, I'm just here to help.
Oh, you're just the backup guy. Yeah, we've listened to Dennis several
That's
times.
what I figured.
It's kind of like Virgil and Jody. It's good to have a pretty face and Dennis.
I don't know about pretty, but it gets around. I've got, this is the main handout, since I didn't have a projector or anything to bring with me to
Thank you.
put it up on the
Thank you.
wall for everybody, so.
Thank you.
There's some extras here. And this is just on the Polymer Alliance zone for your information. Thank you for having me. I am Karen Facemeyer. Currently, I'm president of the Polymer Alliance Zone, also state senator. Going out of term, I understand totally what you were saying on the coal bed methane bill, but I think I was one of the no votes on it, or one of the few no votes, separating money out from specific sources, because then that leaves counties that aren't a resource out. So we've done it, though, it seems like with the coal severance tax, even more so this year. Gaming in one part of the state gets an extra slice of that pie. So before long, some of the counties that have no resources will get nothing and continue to go downhill. But that's not why I'm here today. That's a horse of a different color there. I'm here representing the group Just Beneath the Surface. And basically, it is to get information out, correct information out on the Marcellus gas drilling going on in the state. They partner with the Independent Oil and Gas Association, as well as the West Virginia Petroleum Council. And it's to create and provide an in-depth look and make sure that facts are out there and not fallacies that some people like to throw around, and which tends to scare the general public. There's quite a few supporting partners for this organization, of one of which the Polymer Alliance Zone is glad to be part of. Now, the Polymer Alliance Zone basically is made up of Jackson, Mason, and Wood counties, and that was done back in '96 under Governor Caperton, mainly because those three counties had the largest in the world of specialty engineered polymer companies. And although I don't believe we are the largest in the world now, but we still contain quite a few manufacturing facilities there. One everybody will know offhand is DuPont, and they have their largest North American facility right there in Wood County at the Washington Works site. And actually, it's the it's second only to the one in Europe is actually the largest. But as you can see from this, from the Petroleum Council, Charleston Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Chemical Alliance Zone, the Manufacturing Association, the West Virginia Business Roundtable, all support this organization. Some of the reasons we support it is 53 out of the West Virginia's 55 counties have natural gas operations, so nearly all of them. Second to, I think, timber has operations in all 55 counties, but gas is represented in 53. From 2009 to 2011, severance taxes paid to the state is over $230 million from the natural gas industry. Dennis, please feel free to correct me on any of these. The amount of property tax the industry paid out since 2009 is $271 million. And currently, the industry employs well over 30,000 West Virginians in the field. Now, back in December, we had a special session that came up with the Horizontal Well Act, and that was additional regulations for Marcellus drilling. A lot of people ran scared and put a lot of misnomers out there before we did this legislation, but actually all drilling was regulated by the state, even the Marcellus. It was all under the same, but what I guess the public outcry was, and the legislature heeded on it, was to make sure we specifically identified the Marcellus in the horizontal drilling and put the right regulations in place for them, which it actually provided DEP a funding increase for their permits so that they could hire additional people to go out and regulate or, check and keep an eye on everything. It also gave DEP the right to adjust as the drilling operations, the technologies for drillings changed throughout the years. And they've changed from the 1950s to now. It's a completely different process. It also added provisions to reclaim roads, the notice of drilling activity to surface owners, and the reporting of water and fracturing fluids. The economic impact of the Marcellus Shale in West Virginia from natural gas employment alone from 2011, there was anywhere between 11,400 to 22,300 jobs. In 2020, it will go from 14,856 to 43,000, almost 50,000 jobs that can be out here through just the natural gas employment. Value added anywhere from currently 1,652,000 to 3,335,000 in 2020. State and local taxes, and especially those local taxes, I know counties are partial to, because hopefully when you get your hands on it, then you've got a lot of funding to do for a lot of good programs. We just heard one that I know quite a few counties that take advantage of, and it sounds like you all are in the high school. You've got to have money to operate on, and we realize that, but it should increase from currently $114 million to could be up to $600 million by the year 2020. And this is all a source from the economic impact of the Marcellus Shale in New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. I will say that by Timothy Considine, I believe is how you might pronounce his name. I'm not good at that. In 2010, 99% of the natural gas consumed in the United States was produced in North America, and it serves 65 million homes, 5 million businesses, and 207,000 factories, and 1,800 electric generating units. Those figures right there just speaks volumes as to the impact that it has on each and every one of us. The drilling process, as we get into that, and that's one of the things by not having the slideshow here, the pictures in the one handout, I believe, Commissioner, you have on the end there, has the pictures that you could share with some others. But it shows an actual drilling site and what it looks like as far as the way the Marcellus goes. And that's while the drilling's going on. Some of the more fear factors that we have heard about the drilling was basically how it would ruin the water table. And there is one picture here that shows it. But basically, they're fracturing over 7,000 feet deep. The water table, as described to us in the legislature by two professors from University of West Virginia University, is there's no way it can harm our water table. The water table's at 1,000 feet, even if it went to 2,000. We're at 7,000 feet on the horizontal drilling that they go down. So, and in no place at any time in the history of drilling has the water table been interrupted or disturbed. And I think that's a key fact to point out. The benefits of the horizontal drilling is some environmental areas that are protected from drilling can actually be accessed by the horizontal drilling. A small number of horizontal wells are needed to develop the reservoir. There's multiple horizontal wells can be drilled from a single site, reducing the environmental footprint. One road, one pipeline would actually serve multiple wells on a site. And one thing we must remember is the production of previously untapped resources keeps our utility costs low. We can go into the casing. I know that was a big part of the legislation and the discussion, but the cement casing, and one of the things just beneath the surface wanted to get out, it was how important cementing actually is. Wells cannot be fractured if cement fails. Fresh water cannot be impacted if cement holds. And there are generally 3 strings of casing, all cemented between the Marcellus fracturing job and the freshwater zone. So much easier to have a projector and just a pointer, but we will suffice. One of these days I'll get mine working again. With the hydraulic fracturing, technology used to stimulate the flow of energy from new and existing oil and gas. It was first commercially employed in 1948, so it's not a really new technology. It's been around quite a while. The well is lined in cemented steel casings. Water and sand make up 99.5% of the fracturing mixture, and that was another main sticking point during the committee process and the legislature is what actually is in the fracturing mixture. And there's never been a documented instance of water contamination caused by hydraulic fracturing. With that, I think the water usage was another point to bring out. Power generation uses right at 6 million gallons per day of water. Industrial uses around 1.6 million gallons a day. Public water systems use 1.5 million gallons a day. Marcellus shale drilling, less than 30 million gallons a day. I think I might have that wrong. They're talking about millions of gallons a day. Anyhow, it's 5.6 for the power generations, where it's only 30 for 0.30 for the Marcellus. Potential jobs, and I think that's the thing we have to look at. Although we're talking about the jobs basically of the drillers and the people doing the Marcellus drilling, the horizontal drilling, the potential jobs from this is even greater, from the construction industry to the drilling industry, the chemical industry, the trucking industry, hospitality, and the steel industry. Alone in, or examples of the benefits would be, and this is according to the American Chemistry Council, 17,000 new high-paying jobs just in the chemical industry, 395,000 additional jobs outside the chemical industry, 4.4 billion more federal, state, and local tax revenues annually.
Is this West Virginia, ma'am, or is this
this was put out by the American Chemistry Council, and I want to say it is just West Virginia, but it could be. I'll double check on that because some of the figures they've combined Pennsylvania and Ohio in also. 32.8 billion in the U.S. chemical production, 16.2 billion dollars in capital investment in the chemical industry to build the petrochemical and derivatives capacity, and 132.4 billion in U.S. economic output. And that brings us up to the one thing that you've probably heard a lot on, and that's the location of a cracker within the state of West Virginia. Do not be discouraged by the announcement that Shell decided to put their cracker in Pennsylvania. That is not a done deal yet. And if you've worked with your Economic Development Authority, there's times people come in and they're all, for lack of a better term, hell-bent on being right here. And 6 months into, their survey of everything they need to do, they find another location. And sure, as anything, sometimes that location works, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's other problems that are more costly. So the signature has not been signed in Pennsylvania. That is their choice for right now, but we'll see if it works out. And it's not a bad deal if it does work out. It's 10 miles over the West Virginia border, and that's just the kind of the icing or the cake. The icing on the cakes comes from all the companies, the DuPonts, the Sabics, the GEs, the ICL, IP Americas, all of those polymer companies that will start up for being close to the source of the ethylene. And ethylene is that's the one paper I missed out on here, but ethylene is the one product that is cracked out of the natural gas that is the major feedstock for all polymer companies. So your DuPonts and them can not only grow, but you've got new companies coming in, and especially companies that have left here in the past and are now in Texas and New Orleans and Louisiana and all the other places. We've got a shot at getting those back, and they are already looking. But if a cracker announces, and Shell's not the only cracker.
So there's supposed to be several of them potentially in the
West
area.
Virginia, according to our State Development Office, West Virginia can manage 2 crackers, the amount of gas that's produced here, pretty easily. I've even heard reports that we can do up to 3. And in the area of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, a total of 6 can be handled pretty well. And each one of those are billions of dollars coming into the system just for the cracker. The downfeed of it, the other manufacturing plants, it's mind-boggling at what it can do. It's definitely a game changer for this state, and that's why that a lot of emphasis is being put on and continuing to work with these companies to make sure that something like that happens. One of the things that they definitely, most all of them look at is that river frontage and transportation access. We've been very fortunate with our interstate access through the state. The Ohio River, the Kanawha River, being 2 of our larger ones that they're willing to look at and locate by. And I will tell you, there are discussions still being held, serious discussions with other crackers for the state. And no matter where it's located, the arms of it comes off in all directions, and it will benefit most all the counties definitely surrounding it and benefit the state as a whole. And I think from that little bit, you can understand why the Polymer Alliance Zone is a great supporter of this. We want to increase the manufacturing. We want to increase the polymer business in the state. We already have a good, thriving business. We are located, I believe, in 34, we have polymer companies in 34 counties in the state. From anything from, I believe one close to here is Viking Pools, uses polymers to make their product, the pools, to our big companies such as the DuPont and Sabic, and that's in Wood County, ICL, IP Americas in Mason County. We've got quite a few throughout that area that we're hoping that it will continue to grow no matter where a cracker is put in, that we know that we've got the resources available for them to provide and work with. The card I gave you on the Polymer Alliance Zone is what we use at trade shows to give people an idea when we're talking to companies. The back of it just shows all of the foreign investment in West Virginia, not just polymer companies, but all the foreign investment. But I think the other thing that we've got going for us for a cracker with the drilling and everything is West Virginia. If you haven't heard this, I've heard it over and over again, and I use it every day in talking to companies. But West Virginia is one of 5 states in the black in the United States. We are doing well. Prior to all the campaign rhetoric that you're going to be hearing from both sides of the aisle on how bad things are and our debts and stuff, we stepped up this year to take on the final debt, the OPEB, and making sure it's paid down. We've got one of the lowest electric utility rates in the country, and that's the other thing besides gas is a lot of these manufacturers use a lot of electricity. So we've got that going for us. Our business franchise tax is being taken down and will be, I believe that's the one that'll be finished out where we won't pay any more by 2015. We've lowered our taxes some. On some hand, county commissions don't like that because that's money generally that comes out of your all's pockets. But at the same time, with the added manufacturing and stuff, there should be more coming in from property taxes and other taxes. So it should more than make up. As I've stated before, and I don't think we can say it enough, the drilling of the Marcellus Shale and the horizontal drilling, along with our other drilling going on, is a game changer for the state of West Virginia, unlike any we've seen in the past, and definitely will be, in our lifetime, one of the best things that has happened to West Virginia. With that, Dennis, do you have anything to add, or we can open for questions?
Well, the only thing I like to add is, I think this is a unique situation because.
Dennis, why don't you come up?
Yeah, this is the way the viewing audience can,
It's time for your viewing, the audience.
I don't want to steal Karen's thunder. I think one of the things that's unique about this is, in the last several years, you've heard me get up and speak about the oil and gas industry and the benefits of the oil and gas industry. Well, all of a sudden, it's a lot of people think it's self-serving because we're in the industry. Well, now you have people that are not in the industry. They're in other industries who have suddenly realized that cheap natural gas means a lot to their businesses. Now, the cracker is a direct relational thing because the products that end up coming out of the downstream side of the cracker are what could possibly rejuvenate, in our case, the chemical industry in West Virginia. A lot of people don't realize the size and magnitude of the chemical industry in West Virginia, or at least what it used to be. It's a fraction of what it was several years ago. And why is that? Because we used to have a small amount of ethane gas in West Virginia that was processed in Wetzel County in the Hastings plant, and it was shipped by a pipeline down to the Kanawha Valley where there was a cracker. In fact, one of the first crackers in the country was in Charleston. But when the supply of ethane gas went away, the need for the cracker went away, and the cracking all went to Texas. People don't realize it now. Most people would never understand this, but we're actually shipping natural gas from West Virginia to Louisiana and Texas now because that's where the crackers are. Well, there's a lot of jobs associated with that, but then the downstream products got to be shipped back up here. So it's not just the polymer businesses and the chemical businesses that benefit. Glass business. West Virginia used to have a vibrant glass business. And why is that not here now? One of those people's largest cost is natural gas. And when the price of natural gas went up, those businesses went away because they couldn't afford it. And just about everybody, energy, the cost of energy is what drives the economy. People used to think it was interest rates. It's not interest rates, it's energy costs. We saw that in 2008 when the price of oil went to $147 a barrel. The economy cratered. It just cratered. But if you look back after Reagan deregulated oil, and oil during the Clinton years was down in the $10, $12 range, the economy went great. Cheap energy is key to a lot of that, and we have an opportunity right now because we're awash in natural gas. As we're sitting here right now this morning, as I came in the door, price of natural gas broke through the $2 barrier. It's $1.98 this morning. It had been $14 or over $14 just 4 years ago. So it's terrible if you're in the business, but it's wonderful if you're an American. It's wonderful if you're a West Virginian because there's lots of jobs out there, not just oil and gas jobs, jobs in the chemical industry, and not just in West Virginia, but throughout the country because there's places that never could get natural gas that's getting it now. Electrical generation in New England is really low, but there's just so many advantages to it. But what I think is interesting about it now is it's not just me who's in the industry beating the drum and telling you that it's good. Now we have all these other partners. She named a bunch of them that are supporters of Just Beneath the Surface. So Just Beneath the Surface was kind of started by the oil and gas industry, but now we're getting guys like Joe Eddy up in Wheeling, and these guys are out beating the drum because they realize that a strong oil and gas energy is going to make their situation much better in just the general business climate.
Okay.
That's the other thing we've told a lot of companies we've dealt with. The bottom line in West Virginia to a company even right now, is higher than most other states. With this coming on, makes it even higher for manufacturers. So,
Okay. All right. We have any questions? I knew Tim would have one. Go ahead, Tim.
Senator, I'd just like to ask you a question on the Senate Resolution 12 that came up this year. And
you'll have to tell me what that is.
That was the Marcellus Principles Bill?
Mm-hmm.
And why you were the only senator that did not vote for that?
I not only not voted for it, I took my name off as a sponsor because it was misrepresented to us.
And how was it being misrepresented when all the rest of the senators voted for that? It was a basic, the four basic principles were...
Four basic principles was excellent on it. But the bottom line was, when the speech came up on the floor, it took the tone that we could only, it was only good if we hired West Virginia workers.
And was there something wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong. Well, let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with that in principle, but what's wrong with it is, how do you get your sons and daughters home if you only hire West Virginia workers? How do we get our kids to come home? That we keep hollering, and you'll hear it this campaign even more than others. I want my kids moving back here. I want my family moving back here. If we hire only West Virginia workers, how are you going to get your son and daughter back out of North Carolina or South Carolina? They're not West Virginians.
If they move here, then they are West Virginians. I mean,
that's not how this is taken. This is taken as that you have a West Virginia residence, a West Virginia license. And from that standpoint alone, you cannot come out and say that we're going to hire. Plus, it breaks everything with the Commerce Clause, the free trade agreements. You have to be able to go. Plus, our union workers here and contractors here in West Virginia make good money when they go to Ohio and Pennsylvania and Virginia and Tennessee to work. So if we put that limit on ourselves here, then we're limiting them from going out of state to work also.
Tim, you better be careful what you wish for, because right now the activity is moving to Ohio. And you know who's moving with it? A lot of our sons and daughters who have jobs here. They now have jobs and good paying jobs, but for the next couple of years until this dry gas glut is over, those jobs are going to be in Ohio. Now, if Ohio takes the same point that you take and say, don't you bring those West Virginians up here, there's going to be a whole lot of West Virginians without jobs. Governor Kasich recently...
He's already said that.
Governor Kasich just recently took the same exact approach. He said, if you don't build a facility in our state, we're going to do everything in our power to stop you from working in Ohio. So Rick Smith with Superior Cementing out here, Rick sent cement crew to Ohio about 5 weeks ago on a Sunday, 3 trucks. They get to the Pennsylvania line, and when you cross into the line, there's a weigh station. Now, coming out of West Virginia, Pennsylvania, the weight limit's 74,000 pounds on a truck. Ohio's at 64,000. They pull one of the trucks up on the scale. The truck is under the 64,000 pound limit, but the front axle is 700 pounds over. So overall, the truck's underweight, but the front axle's overweight. You know what they did? Normally, they would give them a warning or a ticket and let them go on about their business. They turned all 3 of Superior's trucks around and said, go back to West Virginia. Now, there's probably 6 or 7 West Virginians working on that crew who didn't work that day, got sent home that day. You know, and when you're talking about a regional development and you look at the map of the Marcellus and the Utica and these other shales, they don't stop at state lines, Tim. They go under the state lines. So when you're talking to people in Wheeling and Moundsville, where you can literally look from where you're standing and see 2 other states, the notion that you're only going to use West Virginians is pretty damn short-sighted and ignorant.
Well, I mean, this was produced by the ACT Foundation and Steve White.
I rest my case. Let me tell you, I read that thing, and I was personally, and I sent email to most of the senators. I was personally offended by that because it leads you to believe that the things that they're wanting us to do in that resolution, we haven't been doing in the past. And the fact is, without that resolution, we've been doing all those things before. And I applaud Senator Facemeyer for doing that. That was just a sop to Orphe Klemfa. That's all that was. Orphe Klemfa helped vote a little, they bent his vote, so they had to give him something so he can take that back to his unions and look like a hero. That's all that was. It's a bunch of crap.
Well, that's your opinion. So,
Well,
let's move on to another question. I think go right ahead.
A while back, there was a joint Marcellus Shale Committee that was put in place to try and bring some regulations to our state that would protect the environment and protect people's water, protect the roads, protect everything. There was, I believe it's 5 senators and 5 delegates that were on it, including Senator Faismeyer. I'm not meaning to embarrass you or anything, but you were the only one that voted against it out of all 10 of them. You also, out of the people who were on the committee, other than Doug Faismeyer, who did not vote, she received the most money as far as donations from the gas industry. And to me, this itself was really a conflict of interest. They took, after all the work that the senators and the delegates did on the committee, the governor turned around, met with industry people, and made up his own bill, and just basically wiped out everything that they had found. And even that bill wasn't even strong enough to protect people. And anyway, I just wonder why you voted against it.
Well, first of all, you won't embarrass me. I've been in politics 20 years now, and it is my final year. I did not seek re-election this year. It is time for fresh ideas and fresh people coming in to the system. I totally believe in term limits, and if I'm not willing to step down and let somebody else step up to the plate, then I can't say that, I can follow the term limits. I voted against it for several reasons, and one even goes back to him. Part of my frustration with the legislative process, whether it be in interim committee meetings or on the floor, is times my fellow senators, and myself included from time to time, vote on things just to get it out of the way and get it gone. Or they know something that's going on behind the scenes, that, that something else is going to take place. We were pretty sure a special session would be called for the Marcellus Shale regulations. We knew that. Our committee, what we come out with, could only hold over till the January session, short of a special session being called. With that said, a lot of what happened during the committees, the leadership picked as the people for those committees as they felt the strong leadership in their body protected. In the House, it was mostly your environmentalist.
Right.
And in the Senate, who is more business-oriented, they picked the business-minded people. And yes, I was on there as the Republican, the only Republican. I voted against it because I thought it went too far. They let people come in and testify that you could not argue with at first because you didn't know the fact. One gentleman came in from the Morgantown area, I believe it was that area, and testified how he signed a drilling contract with the company to come in, and he had just built his house 2 years before, and he had an 18-month-old child and this type of thing. And they were right there on the edge of his property, and it was cracking the foundation in his house and stuff. What we didn't get to ask, because we didn't have all the facts ahead of time and we find out afterwards, he signed a contract. He negotiated the contract with the drilling company. He had the right to say, you don't drill within 1,000, 10,000, or, how many ever feet he wants from the house. So we can't legislate stupidity.
But there's many people that don't have a choice. The minerals under their property are owned by gas companies. They're being sold left and right in these Ponzi schemes. And they turn around and, they don't have any right. They have to let the drillers on their property.
Well, and I
And
think
it
we,
ruins
I
their
think
life.
we
Their property
did,
value goes down,
we
you know,
did
it's-
address, mineral owners and surface owners somewhat. There's still work to be done. No piece, everybody I think realizes this, any piece of legislation that comes out of that legislature is ever perfect. It needs corrected. Now, the scary part is no different than the gray machine legislation. It needs to be perfected, but no one's willing to stand up and even introduce legislation to help correct it because of this love-hate relationship that the public has with it and the beatings you take on it.
Well, I think legislation, in the legislative process, they say, it's the sausage-making thing. Nobody likes to see what it looks like. But a couple of points. Number one, you look at who gives money to Senator Facemeyer. Did you look to see who gives money to the environmentalists? I mean, you're going to stop people from giving money to Karen, you might as well stop people from giving money to the environmental people too. I mean, we live in a democracy. The second part of that is, we do live in a democracy, and that bill, that horrible bill that the Select Committee came up with, horrible bill that was put together by one-sided people. No, I'm going to prove to you it was a horrible bill. It never could get passed. So while there's 134 people in the legislature, 134 people in the legislature, 10 on that committee, they come out with a bill, but the majority of the 134 people said,
Yeah, it would not have even passed the
bill.
House of Delegates, which would have upheld, their members on the committee.
So then,
It would not even
so if
passed
we want
it.
to talk about democracy worked. I don't like the bill as it is. You don't like the bill as it is, so we kind of meet in the middle here. But then you had Tim Mannypenny introduce 27 more amendments to that bill to try to bring it back to what the Select Committee bill was. Every one of them failed. They never made it. They never made it into committee. So the process worked, whether you like it or not. The process did work, and I got to tell you, I don't like it either. I don't. For example, part of that bill requires me now to give somebody 10 days notice before I even go survey on their property. I mean, I've always called people before I've ever entered on their property, but the fact that you've got to notify somebody 10 days ahead of time and you don't know what the rain or the weather's going to be, half the time when you're dealing with large tracts that have been cut up into small tracts, you're not even sure whose property you're going to be on. There's just a lot of things about it. And going to your point about surface owners, you knew, or you should have known, when you bought your property that you weren't buying the minerals and that somebody somewhere had the right to come on and develop those. And if you didn't want to play by those rules, you shouldn't have bought the property. You should have bought a property that you did own the minerals
There's
on.
many people that did not know that.
Well, that's caveat emptor, buyer beware. You should know that. You should, before you buy a piece of property, you should have a title search done. You should know what you're buying. And the fact that you didn't know is not the problem, is not the fault of the owners. And what about those mineral owners? You made the comment these mineral rights are owned by big companies. That's flat out wrong. Most of the minerals in Upshur County and all these counties around here are owned by people just like you and you and you. And you've been paying taxes on them for years. Your grandfather reserved them, or your uncle bought them, or somehow you bought them. The checks that I send out every month don't go to big corporations. They go to people like everyone sitting in this room every single month. And a lot of those people, their only income is their Social Security check and the royalty check that I send them. And they paid taxes on that property for years. So you would seek to take those people's rights away and replace your rights, make your rights superior to their rights, and that's just not fair.
I don't see it fair the other way either.
Well,
Sorry.
you shouldn't have bought the property.
Well, and that's one of the problems in West Virginia and some states, it's not separated. But unfortunately, West Virginia and some other states, it is separated, and there's no way they're ever going to be joined back together.
Hey,
it's just not going to happen.
Speaking from someone who's done this for 37 years and starting out doing the land aspects of it, if I could turn back time and redo it, I would have never let them sever minerals. I mean, that would have been great. We didn't make those rules. It was here, from the 1870s and 1880s, but we have to live by them, and we have to honor the rights of the people that own the minerals. If we could change it, I mean, I'd rather have a root canal than have to call somebody up and say, I'm going to come drill a well on your property and you're not going to get anything out of it but some surface damages. That's not a lot of fun. Conversely, I love going to tell somebody, hey, we're going to drill a well, you're going to get some royalty, or maybe get free gas. you know, they love it. They like to see you come. It's a wonderful relationship. I get along really well with all my landowners, but I get along particularly well with the ones I send checks to. Sending somebody a check has that effect on them.
Okay, well,
One of the pieces of legislation that I put in this past year would hopefully start the path of correcting that, is that anytime minerals come up for sale, they have to be offered to the landowner first, the surface owner first, and go from there. Of course, then you get into the haggling of whether they're overpriced or not and that type of thing. So that's something I think that'll continue to be looked at in the future in the legislature. I hope it does.
Well, the debate continues, and I think it's forums such as this that give people the opportunity, either through the printed media or through the public television media, to understand the issues from both sides and
Well,
to form an opinion, independent opinion, as to who carries the weight of facts with them.
We thank you for your allowing us the opportunity to come and present the facts and get, you know, a different perspective out there than what, you know, has been scaring some people along the way. So thank you.
okay, thank you very much.
Tim, do you have anything to say?
No. That's okay. One for you, Mr. Sir.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Live here. Are you on your agenda?
Okay, it's a little past 10 o'clock, and we have Carl Tenney, matters relating to property of Ritchie and Tucker. If you'd like to step up, Carl, right up to the podium there, and we'll give you the floor.
Like the guy just said, that you buy a piece of property and you thought you was doing right, well, that always ain't the case. You can get stuck with a pink elephant real easy. The property in question, the city of Buckhead has tried over 10 years to get the guy tore down. And the last 3 years, they've been trying to get me taken down. I've got one contractor who's put a bid on to take the remaining asbestos out of the building for $15,000. The remaining asbestos. The guy that owned the building told the city of Buckhannon that it wasn't asbestos, and it was slate. Well, come down and it's asbestos. Next week, I hope, I'm going back and get my license reinstated to take out the asbestos. I've been shut down by every agency trying to do something with the building. It's in my contract with the guy. I cannot take the building down until it's paid for. I was supposed to give the guy X amount of dollars for the building. I've never paid a man nothing on it. The building was sold to be sold at the county for taxes. He paid the taxes so it would not be sold. But he knows all the time, if that building's taken down, you can never do nothing with the lot. And he's holding me to that, and he keeps my name on that all he can. The city of Buckhannon wants the building down, and me, it's irrelevant. But I know for a fact, if we take the building down, he's going to get the lot back, free and clear. Different agencies taking things out of that building of contaminated material at no expense to him. And he is just turning a pink elephant loose on people. And I need help of some kind. I don't know what kind of help. But the man has got the city and me over a barrel.
Do someone from the city want to speak to that?
He's pretty much.
Why don't you step up here again?
I'm Kenny Davidson, I'm the mayor, if you don't know, and Cracker asked me to come up here today, and he's pretty much represented where we are. The city has noticed Cracker as the legal owner of the property to do something with the building, and I really think that's where our responsibility ends. We have no regulatory authority over how that building's torn down. The state asbestos inspector's been here, so I think that department is in charge of the regulations. We're not at that point. So I think what Cracker's proposing is that he gets himself recertified to do asbestos removal and get that out of there. I don't know what other solutions there are. And we've been, as he said, we've been chasing this thing for 3 years. Anybody have any questions for me, I'd try to answer them, but I just came here at Cracker's request this morning.
Well, how is the regulation with the city as far as dilapidated, unsafe buildings, as far as what authority the city has?
Well, the city has the authority to, we have at our option, we can tear the building down and lien the property. But the asbestos situation there, we're looking at $20,000 to $25,000, and we cannot recoup any of that, and I don't think that's a good spend of taxpayers' money. I said so in a council meeting. And I think Cracker can do it cheaper than anybody else, but it just doesn't make good sense for us to do that, to tear it down. The other recourse that we have is we can, there's 7 counts against our zoning ordinance that are being violated as we speak, and we could impose $100 a day per account as long as that condition exists. That's $700 a day. You can do the math. If Cracker had $10,000 to throw away, we could take that $10,000 and the building would still be there. He can use that money he has to tear the building down. It doesn't make sense. We can also put him in jail, but it really doesn't make good sense to do that. And I think he's offered a solution if he's going to recertify. I just have one question. Cracker, when are you going to school?
I think we'll get in next week.
Where will you be in school?
If it goes through, and if it's anybody will take the asbestos classes, that these take them, I can have it at Tri-County School. I had it once before at Tri-County, right here in Buchanan. I had it once before at Tri-County.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a minimum number of people to take it.
They got at least 4 people, and I've already got 2 I know, me and another boy, for sure. We get 2 more people to take it. It's only $600, you can be certified.
But I understand there's a class in Morgantown.
This is the one, the guy will come to Morgantown, he's came here before.
But he's also got one scheduled in Morgantown May the 1st. So if you weren't able to get 4 people for him to come here, then you could go to Morgantown on May the 1st.
Yes, that's the next option.
And that's what I think's the best solution.
So if let's assume that Cracker got his asbestos license, he removed the asbestos, then what would happen?
Well, I'm under contract with him, I cannot tear the building down until he's paid $15,000. He's want $15,000 on my contract, I can tear the building down with the contract he's got me under.
So even if you got your license for
I can take the asbestos
asbestos,
off of it, and
you could take the asbestos out, but you still can't tear the building down. So you have the same situation even if you go through that process.
but to get the man,
Who is the man? We keep on referring to this person as the man. Does the man have a name?
well,
Does the man have a name? I mean,
Bobby Stell.
okay, we have a
Bobby
name.
Stell.
And you bought the building 3 years ago under the conditions that you stipulated, that you can't tear it down till you pay X
But
amount
my
of dollars.
contract with him was never real good, I've never given the man a dime on the building.
But the property's titled in your name
Yes,
on the land books.
yes.
Well, I know the people that contacted us from that area were concerned about the safety of the structure and with the kids, and basically being right across the street from the academy school. That was their concern. So it sounds like it's still not an easy fix, even if you get your asbestos license, you still have to come up with $15,000 before you can tear the building down. Is that correct?
Right, and if I spend that money, then you can't do nothing with the law after the building's torn down. The city will not approve the building, and I don't know what, the neighbors beside of it, the woman was beside of it, don't want a nice double wide on, which wasn't a double wide, it was a modular home. I had it sold to Prestige Homes, to put a real nice home on. Oh no, the neighbor woman, no, she didn't want that either, but she drove looked at the glass factory for the next 5 years, I reckon.
So what would the restriction the city would have if it were tore down as far as the use of it?
It's a R2 residential #2 lot, can be used to put a home on. It's a small lot, so it'd have to be a small home. The proposed home was much larger than
The problem is the size of the home.
Exactly.
What would be the maximum square footage that could be put on home lot?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but given the variance or requirements as far as zoning code is concerned, a two-story home would fit a lot better than a one-story home.
There's no environmental restrictions if the building is torn down.
No.
But it's residential, there couldn't be a business put back there, if that, once that's tore down.
Certain limited kinds of businesses, professional offices, those kinds of things can go there. But it's, R2 is pretty limited in terms of the type of business that can be established there.
I just make one more statement here about this. We've been chasing this thing for 3 years, and it's kind of like taking candy away from a baby octopus. Every time you think you've got it, some other tentacle reaches out and grabs it. And we've just been stymied at every turn. And we continue to try to come up with a solution. I still think the best solution, Cracker, for you to get that license, get that asbestos off of it, and then maybe you can talk to Bob about tearing the building down.
I was going to talk to him the other day. I asked him for $15,000.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Like I say, we were contacted by local residents, and we told them that it was in the city, but we would raise the issue, but we had no authority. You have your own ordinances. We have the same thing in the county as far as, and that's basically the same. We can't encourage people to tear it down, then we can tear it down and then put a lien against the property if it's ever sold. So if there's no other questions or comments, we know where we are. At least we have some more information, but it does sound like it's a, maybe the possibility might be if you got your license where you could take the asbestos out, then maybe you could sell it for enough to pay him for it, work a deal out that way.
Nobody will buy it. You can't do nothing with law. Once you tear the building down, you can't do nothing with law. If that woman ain't gonna prove a beautiful, nice little tiny double wide one, she ain't gonna prove nothing. The lady lives beside her.
Well, but according to Reg, a smaller house could go on there. Maybe the thing to do would be to find out.
Well, I can read back all back the rest of each home. I'm sure they're always looking for property.
Right, and it may be like he said, if it's a two-story house, then you get greater amount of square footage because you're not taking up so much ground space. That might be a possibility. So hopefully you get your asbestos license
Yeah, I need
soon.
it back.
Okay. All right, our next scheduled appointment is at 1 o'clock, our Upshur County Policy Board meeting of elected officials, and then 2 o'clock, Upshur County Departmental and Program Supervisors meeting. Let's take a little 5-minute recess.
Let's do that.
Okay, we're back from our recess, and our next item is approved community participation grant contract with West Virginia Development Office for the Brushy Fork Community Building. This is an amount of $6,000. Where are we at in this process, Willie? Why don't you go over that timetable on how these grants, from the time that it comes out in the paper that our Senator delegate has gotten money, and then what the process is before they actually get their money.
Okay, we received this particular grant probably of February, March time period of last year. 2011.
Okay.
A year ago then.
Yeah, the initial application where we had to fill out the application and return it by June the 30th of 2011, which we have to send it to the organization, not only this particular organization, but all organizations, to fill out that initial application, get the required accompanying documentation if they're a 501c3, et cetera, whatever it may be, send that back in. Now, after we send that initial application back in, the second step is this contract that we have today. Once we get the application in, the development office sends a contract for the commission to sign, which is where we are today on this one. I'd received all the other contracts in the first part of March.
Of this year.
Of this year for the ones that, for this group. the Brushy Fork was not in there, so I've contacted the development office, and then they sent this through, and we have it, today for approval. Once we get the contract, we'll sign that, assuming the commission approves it today. It'll be sent to the development office, and then they'll sign the contract, approve it, and send it back to us. Sometimes that is a quicker turnaround. Sometimes it's a while, depending on where it hits down there. There's usually just 3 individuals that are processing these grants down there, and they just hired one recently. They were down to 2 for a number of months, and now they've got somebody back on staff. And once we get that contract, they'll sign it, send it back to us. Then Brushy Fork Community Building will be able to spend the funding to do that. We had the ones that were recently signed and returned from the previous set, prior to the ones that we're working on right now, the 2010 grants. We received those in February of 2012 was when the final approval was. So it was approximately 2 years from the time the start of 2010 until the contract was signed and returned by the development office.
It looks like it'd be a better way. I know you've talked to them about it, and nothing happens, but that's a long time to wait when you need your money.
Yeah, well, I had a call from the individuals that are on the Brushy Fork Community Building side back in December, stating that the local delegate said, well, it's been approved. Willie should have or the commission office, contact Willie at the commission office. They should have your funding. So they did. And I said,
we don't.
We don't.
Maybe our delegates and senators should be educated on the process and the amount of time, so they don't tell people something that's not accurate, and then the commission gets a bad rap.
I strive to do that.
Okay, so here we are today, and we need to approve the grant contract for Brushy Fork, and I would ask for a motion to approve that and authorize the president to sign all documentation.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Let the record show that it passed unanimously. Okay, the next item is...
And the reason we agree on that is because it's the right thing to do.
That's correct, Mr. Fletcher. Very well stated. Approved resolution designating April 2012 as Fair Housing Month.
This is part of a requirement for associated with the Small Cities Block Grant Program through the Department of Human Urban Development.
Okay, make this official. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have correspondence from the West Virginia Division of Highways requesting assistance from county commissions concerning verification of sufficient access to state roads prior to approval of housing developments. This doesn't sound like something very important here.
Well, they've modified the legislation a little bit. Right now, anybody that has a driveway or an entrance access to a Department of Highways road has to get a permit currently anyway. Whether it's a subdivision as this legislation talks about, or just an individual driveway, you're supposed to get a permit from the Department of Highways before you put in a driveway or any entrance to a state road, to a road controlled by the Department of Highways. So we're going to try to make people aware of that when they sometimes come in for a building permit, but many times that is already in the process before we're aware of it. So I'm not real sure what they expect us as counties to do. I was going to have Mrs. Bennett contact the Department of Highways, review it with them, and go over. But we'll assist when we, where we can. But many times it's after the fact when we find out about it.
I think it'd be the responsibility of the property owner to contact Department of Highways.
It is, yeah. Not only in a subdivision, but
anybody.
Anytime you're putting in access And
Okay,
I suspect the majority, I'm just guessing, but I would suspect the majority of some of these issues arise in the larger counties where you have larger population bases, such as Eastern Panhandle and possibly up at Morgantown area. You have larger developments that are being constructed.
And some counties have subdivision regulations where they must get approval from the county commission in the planning process, which would, if we had that here, we don't have subdivision regulations, then we could advise the Department of Highways. So it would be more effective in a county that did have subdivision regulations.
well, I think there's, when there's a subdivision goes into effect, I think the assessor's involved in that, so maybe they should get this information so they could tell the people that if you're putting in a subdivision, that you pass this information along to them.
We have our policy board meeting.
We'll
this
bring that up
afternoon.
with our
Bring that up.
astute assessor this afternoon, yes. Thank you, Mr. Rafferty.
You're welcome. Mr. President.
Okay. And that seems to conclude what's on our agenda. We do have our monthly building permits for the past month. Last month, they were down considerably. This month, we're still down $389,000 for the month of March. So there's still some work being done. We have our reports from the dog catcher and
How long is a building permit good for?
well, that's a good question.
60 days.
60?
60 days. Now, it can be renewed if individuals just advise us, usually we renew it without any additional cost.
I went yesterday and got an application. Well, I had a permit last year to build my garage. And I did not finish the driveway going into it. And I went yesterday to get a permit. Of course, I got a whole bunch of papers to fill out. And I just wonder, last year I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, we've changed some of the process as it relates to the building permits, as it relates to the corresponding with the floodplain management that we're now in more detail on. So that's one reason it has changed.
Well, I'm probably in the 10,000 year range.
Yeah. And some of it will apply to you, some of it, it won't, depending, of course, where it is.
I didn't know if I would have to redo for sure on that, for the driveway or not.
You already built the garage? You just didn't have the driveway in?
Correct.
Well, I guess it would depend on the cost of the driveway, wouldn't it? I
Well,
would think that wouldn't that fall under the original one though?
yeah, it's just a matter of completion, and we can take a look at that. We can just renew the same permit without an issue usually.
Right.
It's, as long as nothing's changed.
Right.
Sometimes things have changed.
Right. Okay. Okay, well, we have lots of paperwork to do, so we will start on our paperwork.